Hey guys, so we're gonna move on to chapter 8. Chapter 8, Fever. If you've never been dragged out of a middle school dance by your mom while she's wearing sweatpants and carrying your pajama-clad little brother over her shoulder, then you haven't had the same kind of life that I'm leading this year. As she rushed me to the car at breakneck speed, my mom told me what was going on. We're going to the emergency room. Your brother has a fever. I looked up at the top of Jeffrey's head, and even in the dim school hallway lights, I could see that it was matted with sweat. Why is that an emergency? What does it mean? Where is Dad? Dad is still at his dinner, and I don't know what the restaurant. I don't know the name of the restaurant, and his cell must be turned off. Anytime your brother gets a fever from now on, it's an emergency. I don't know what this means. Please get the doors, please. Okay, Mom, is this serious? I don't know, honey. I don't know. I wish I knew. She must have thought the situation was pretty urgent, though, because she doesn't usually leave the house in sweats. And I noticed that she hadn't even taken the time to put shoes on Jeffrey. Although she's the careful driver in our family on most days, our ride to the hospital was like the Indy 500. I didn't even have time to think of how in the world I was going to explain this away to my friends on Monday. I was mostly too busy trying to keep from passing out due to the incredible G forces every time we turned a corner. Somehow Jeffrey didn't wake up, but he was definitely groaning in his sleep. I reached over and crammed his blanket between his head and the corner of the booster seat so he wouldn't get whipped around so much. My hand brushed against his forehead, and he was definitely ragingly hot. The staff didn't mess around at all when we got there. As soon as my mom said leukemia, there were doctors, nurses, technicians swarming all over. The doctor in charge was barking orders like a Marine drill sergeant, with questions in between for my mom. We'll need a CBC and a full differential. Do you know what his last counts were? When were those taken? Does he have a catheter? What kind? Take off his shirt and access the portacath. Make note, we'll need to run some hairpins soon. Get the blood first. We'll have to have those numbers. As they started to take Jeffrey's clothes off, he woke up. I guess he wasn't surprised to find himself in the hospital. Both he and my mother seemed to have become used to this bizarre world. I couldn't even understand what the doctors and nurses were saying, but they were both clued in to this secret language. He didn't say anything and took his temperature orally, even though he used to always make a show choking my parents did it at home. He responded to all the commands that came his way. Tilt your head, take 3 breaths, lean forward, please, with mute obedience, until they laid him down, and went for his chest tube with a needle. Now, I know that something had been done to Jeffrey's chest in Philadelphia. I'd seen the 2 lines of stitches and a round bulge under the skin of his ribs. But during the whole period he until the medical staff, he had only stunk in to a point. I had to accept to make any sense of any given moment. So I only really knew that taking steroids every day, for example, when I saw him gagging down the syringe of bitter liquid in the kitchen every morning and night. And I guessed now was my moment to believe in the portacath, which was an IV tube that had been surgically implanted under the skin a couple of inches above Jeffrey's right nipple. Jeffrey pulled away from the doctor when he saw a needle and asked in a pathetic little voice, "Can we do the M L L I didn't know what I didn't know it then, but EMLA is a cream that makes your skin numb. They had been using EMLA so Jeffrey wouldn't feel the hurt of the needle as it stabbed through the skin to get to the catheter in his chest. The doctor's voice softened then. He almost whispered to Jeffrey, "I'm sorry, buddy. The EMLA takes an hour to work, and we can't wait." Then the doctor half turned to me and asked Jeffrey, "Would it help if your brother held your hand?" Jeffrey didn't respond at all, but he looked at, at me and his eyes were brimming. And I'm a pretty squeamish about shots and blood and stuff. But what was I going to do? I grabbed his hand and let him sort of lean his head on my shoulder without sitting up from his pillow. I started the "You're okay, Jeffy" chant, and the nurse scrubbed the circle of skin above the port with yellowish orange stuff. Then she broke open one of those sterile packets with that needles come in and took out a truly large one, which was bent in the middle at a 90-degree angle. Jeffrey started to win. Jeffrey started to whimper, and the tears began to soak the shoulder of my shirt. But he didn't even flinch as a huge needle stabbed straight into his chest. The nurse taped the needle in place, and I closed my eyes. I heard someone say, "Flushing the port," and then I got a little woozy. Jeffrey kept squeezing my hand really hard for a few minutes until the blood specimens had all been taken and an IV line was hooked up to the port. I think we both fell asleep for a little while. When I opened my eyes, the doctor was talking with mom. Neither of them noticed I was awake, I just so I just lay there and listened. Evidently, Jeffrey had what should have been a simple ear infection, but his white blood cell counts were low because of the chemotherapy drugs he was on. So his body couldn't fight off germs very well. The doctor was saying that Jeffrey would need to spend a few days in the hospital getting antibiotics through his IV line and in addition to his regular medicines. My mom didn't look pleased. "Can we do this here, or he'll be here until morning? We'll put him on a pediatric floor for now, but we're going to have to transport him to Children's Hospital in Philadelphia as soon as his fever is down." "Transport him?" "Yes. We can send him in an ambulance, so we don't have to stop his IV, or we can cap the line and you have to drive him. I'll consult the specialists down there in the morning and whatever they want to do." "Oh God, how expensive is the ambulance ride?" "I don't know, but we have to do what's best for your son medically right now." "I understand. We're just having some financial troubles with all this." I've had to leave my job, and my mom started crying then. "I'm sorry, doctor. It's been so sudden, you know. We have very good insurance, but all this adds up: the copays, parking, food, gas, tolls, and my husband isn't really, well, taking it well yet." "I hear you, ma'am." He sort of patted my mom on the shoulder at this point. "I'll be back around in a few hours. We'll be moving you all to a private room any minute, and then maybe you can get some tests, get some rest." "Yeah, sure." My mom looked tired enough to sleep for a week, but I knew she wasn't going to get any rest. I got out of Jeffrey's bed for a big move upstairs, and I fell back asleep in a chair by the window in the new room. My mom spent a few hours lying in the cot that they had brought in, but I really don't think you could say she slept. Every hour or so, some medical person or other came in to take Jeffrey's temperature, or attach a new bag to his IV, or do something that would ruin our rest. At 2 a.m., my mom walked out of the room. I wanted to know what was going on. So, after a couple minutes, I followed her. I found her sitting in the hallway, leaning back on the wall with her chest with her knees to her chest, holding a cup of coffee that must have come from a little coin operated machine that was out there. I plopped down next to her. Hey, Mom, how are you? I'm fine, Stephen. I was really worried about your brother last night, but it looks like it's just going to be what life is like for a while. Mom, how long is this going to last? They're going to run some tests next week. If he's cancer free by then, he'll still be in treatment for a few years. Then, who knows? After 5 years without cancer, he should be totally normal. Mom, what if he's not cancer free next week? I don't know, Stephen. I just don't know. By the way, I'm sorry we ruined your night. Mom, forget it. It was fine. Oh, really? Fine? Was it? Should I should I storm into graduation wearing sweats too? Yeah, that would be pretty cool. Maybe you could have your hair up in curlers for extra style points. I guess I'd be able to swing that, Stevie. How about some flip flops on my feet? Excellent, Mom. That would be excellent. Right there in the hallway, I put my head in her lap. She stroked my hair for a while and then sent me back into the room. Get some sleep, pal. At about 5 in the morning, my dad came into the room and shook me awake. I guess my mom had gotten through to him by phone at some point. He put a finger over his lips so I wouldn't make any noise to wake Jeffrey. But of course, right then, when I was about to tiptoe out of the room, a lady came crashing in with a giant breakfast cart. So we had this odd little family conference while Jeffrey attempted to choke down some food. My parents spent a few minutes looking at Jeffrey's hospital chart, worked out the details and what needed to be done if my mom and Jeffrey were going to Philadelphia for a week, and went into the hall to argue about something. I had this little while alone with Jeffrey. He looked really exhausted, but his fever was gone, and he was much more alert mentally than he had been the night before. He asked me about the dance. Did you have fun? Did you dance a lot? Did Renee Albert kiss you? Did it feel gross? Get out of here, you little nutball. I'm telling you, have zero chance of kissing. I'm telling you, I have zero chance of kissing Renee Albert. Zitch, zero, zilch, nada. So who did you kiss? Nobody. I was standing around with my friends when you came to get me. Did I ruin your night? Mom asked me that too. Jeffrey, you didn't ruin my night. It was ruined from the start. You had a worse night than that I did anyway. Oh well, at least you didn't have to kiss anybody. Yeah, Jeffrey, that's a big comfort to me. My parents came back in and started, and I started to get up to leave. Jeffrey asked me for a hug, and I gave it to him. Take care, Jeffrey. See you soon, right? Just remember not to throw food at the nurses. Don't want to get any complaint calls. Jeffrey, I don't throw food. Stephen, I don't throw fruit at. Oh, that was a joke, right? Yep, buddy, it was a joke. But seriously, no kissing nurses on their lips either. It messes their makeup. Ew.